Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast.
Everyone has at least one good story.
And some of us have stories that are just to the left of normal.
We're interested in the ones that push the boundaries of what we can perceive.
Stories that defy explanations.
Stories with an air of mystery.
Stories we might not share
for fear of being thought of differently.
But don't worry, we're all friends here. So, what's your weird story?
Hello, Weirdsville. Welcome to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. We hope you're doing well. I'm your host, Barry Johnston. With me, as always, my co-pilot, Mr. Adam Beebe. How are you doing, Adam?
I am doing all right. How about you, sir?
I'm doing well. I had a weird story that I came across that I wanted to run across you today. Didn't know if you heard about it, but I was cruising the YouTubes today, and there was this crazy story on Vice, which, you know, sometimes I like to check out Vice's stuff, you know. Sometimes, sometimes it's weird, but they had this story. I thought it was really intriguing because I never heard this story, but there was a story about a man in Florida who works for a school system down there that one of his job titles or whatever is to make sure that the walk to school or the ways that kids get to school are unimpeded and are safe to travel. And so he does that by going on to Google, and he kind of maps things out and just makes sure that everything's cool, right? Well, he was doing this, and an ex-girlfriend that he lived at, an area of town that she lived at, he was checking out her area for the school district or something around there. And he sees an image in a lake behind her house. And he zooms in on it, and it looks like a car. And this is one of these residential neighborhoods in Florida that's it's got these reservoirs of water that collect, you know,
right.
So they're big ponds, you know, in the back. Fairly new. Like, I think the thing was probably built, 22 years ago it started. So he calls her and he says, "Would you do me a favor?" He said, I'm looking at Google Maps right now, and I'm seeing an image in this water, reserve. Could you go out and look at it for me? And so she was a little nervous to do it, so she had somebody else go out and do it. Well, they find this car that has been in this pond, or in this reservoir, for 22 years.
Wow.
And it was a gentleman that he had been missing for 22 years, and they had, he had caught the last sighting that they had of him, or the last knowings of him, were he called his girlfriend at like 9:00 at night on a Friday or a Saturday, telling her that he was on his way home. Apparently drove his car off into this on accident or something. I think he's probably drinking or something. And they found his remains still in, bones, buckled into this car. They pulled it out and they found the guy. Isn't that amazing?
Dude. Well, the fact that, that happens, I don't want to say necessarily frequently, where the people drive into, the water, but right. That's not a rare occurrence where a missing person or people have suddenly appeared in, ponds or lakes, and that they've driven into, and it's always, at night, and the people that they've been missing for a while. I think it happened to a famous missing case in Oklahoma.
That's true.
Back in like the 50s or 40s or 50s, two high school girls went missing. Yeah. And they had no clue, and then somehow somebody found their car in a pond.
I remember that.
But it's just crazy that, he was there, looking at his girlfriend's house on Google Maps.
Yeah.
I mean, he was looking for the paths for the children.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it just happened. Maybe he was like, well, yeah, let's take a look at her house.
Right.
And he goes over there and he sees that. And that's wild, dude. Like, the things that show up on Google Maps and Google Earth are just, there's some wild stuff.
Yeah.
We should maybe do a Patreon episode about some of that. Do some research and find out our favorite things.
Yeah.
I remember I saw recently some, I don't want to necessarily say a news agency, but something had claimed that there was a subterranean UFO base discovered, the entrance discovered on Google Maps.
Oh, wow.
Or something. Google Earth. And it's this weird kind of hole that it looked like it cut in. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, Google Maps, when you get on there, it does have a weird thing when it renders video, the screen. So there's some weird shit that goes on. You sent me some stuff a while ago that had some weirdness where you were looking around over in the UK somewhere.
Yeah, yeah.
Remember?
Oh, yeah, dude. I was looking in. We didn't talk about this ever, did we?
No, we didn't.
We were going to. No, I was actually looking in the village of Beebe. That's, where my people come from.
Yeah.
My namesake's people come from. And I was going, it's like barely anything, there. It's hardly anything there. It's tiny, 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 even by, our normal American standards. It's super tiny. It's like a very tiny village. Anyway, I was like just kind of cruising down the road, as you can click, and I saw this weird thing in the picture in the sky.
Yep.
And it looks kind of like a translucent, sort of reflective bubble
object.
Or sphere or something above the town. And I was freaking out about it. I was like, this is crazy. And then I sent you, I'm like, look at this. And, this is in England, in the village of Beebe, where I'm from. And like, there's this weird thing there. And so, I don't think it's anything. I think that it's either it's a weird spherical object of unknown origin in the sky, or it's a water droplet on the camera as it was driving by, because it stayed in the same kind of place.
Right.
Well, as it kind of moved.
Yeah.
But who knows?
Yeah.
But it was just strange, like,
it's really cool.
Because we found that. I'd found that just by dicking around on Google Maps, looking at a place I want to visit someday, simply because that's where I get my name from.
Absolutely. It sounds like we need to take a trip to get to the bottom of it,
Yeah.
But speaking of weird stories and weird things, we've got a great one today. We have a guest that he comes from the Kansas City area, and he has a really great UFO story and more.
Yeah. This also is a weird story that started with something in the sky, and it goes in a really fascinating, really intense direction. And like, this experience has really, really affected Josh, our guest, and it's wild, man. It's fantastic. It's one that we haven't heard before, and we think that you guys are really gonna really like it, because it is super cool, and scary and different, and
Yeah. So let's get to it. Let's get to Josh. Josh, thank you so much for joining us. What's your weird story?
All right. So to sum it up, I experienced a UFO sighting on the same night that I was visited by a Nordic, or a white.
Wow. Whoa. Now, wait a minute. Let me hold on a minute.
Go ahead.
I gotta wrap my brain
Let
around
that
this.
settle in for a second.
Yes, I know. That's a lot. It is. It's
Okay.
a lot to think about.
Okay, continue.
All right. So, like I was just saying, I got visited by a Nordic, and if I'm being honest, just mentioning it still sends shivers down my spine a little bit. I still get that feeling of, like, okay, this was weird. So I'll just go ahead and get started. So this year, the year was 2017. I was in between careers. This was after I was teaching in Kansas City, Kansas. So after I got done with teaching, I was working at a Scheels, one of those sporting goods stores, working the Ferris wheel. Actually, if you are familiar with the Scheels, they got the Ferris wheels. So pretty cool stuff. That night, very late, they had everybody working till about 11:30 midnight. It was like after the holidays and restocking and all that stuff. So I'm getting off work, relaxing as I'm driving home. It's a short drive, 10 minutes, 3 or 4 minutes on the highway. So, wasn't a big deal. But this is kind of where stuff got real. Like, and what was weird, not a single car on the highway. I didn't see one car on my way home.
Wow.
Now, that's bizarre, to say the least. It's one thing if it's like, oh, there was 1 or 2 cars. I didn't see one, and I can distinctly remember that specific fact.
Right.
It was just dead. And sure, it was New Year's around that time, so people were probably not as out, but still a little weird.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm driving, I get to my exit, and I just take a look up to my left, and, I'm sitting there. What is that? I see just a glowing green light. And it was, I thought at first a plane, it was just a plane, or maybe it'll blink here in a second. No blinking. It sat there for 10 seconds, and when you're focused on something, time's a little slower. So my perception of time might have been a little worse, but I sat there for quite a while. It was a red light. It turned red, turned green. I sat through a whole cycle. So while I'm sitting there, I'm watching this green dot, and like subconsciously, I was thinking, is that a UFO? I'm just like, what else could it be? It's just sitting there. It could be a drone. Sure, maybe. But if it was a drone, it would be moving. It's stationary.
Yeah.
And then as soon as I thought that, it started to move straight down. Now, my perception, I mean, honestly, it's hard to guess how far away it was in the sky because it's a green dot.
Sure.
But, you're sitting there and it's moving. You can see substantially it's moving down in the sky. Then it goes back up, goes back to middle, and then left, and then right. It's almost like it's showing me its flight patterns. Like, hey, this is what we can do. And then, like I'm sitting there for 30, 45 seconds just watching it. It goes back to the middle, and this is after the car finally came up behind me. First car I've seen anything. And I'm just sitting there. And that green dot, I say in my head, okay, as soon as it turns green, I've got to go. As soon as that green light hits, that green dot in the sky turned into a green line and then disappeared.
Whoa.
Like,
damn.
And when I say it like that, I instantly thought of Star Wars going into hyperdrive.
Yeah.
That's it.
Right.
That's what happened. I had instantly. And I mean, it was a green dot, and then instant later, a green line, and then disappears. Very, very, still today, I'm like trembling a little bit because I know, I know what's coming next.
Yeah, right.
You know, I'm just remembering every little feeling I had that night. And I was just like, I knew before this, I was a believer before this. I've had, you know, previous experiences, but not quite this substantial.
Right.
And yeah, so I drive off, and again, still in awe, just mouth agape as I'm driving home. Like, I just saw that. Oh my God. And my phone, of course, I wasn't thinking, pull out my phone and record this. You know, it never seems to happen like that because you want to focus on it. Like, I was like, I'm getting this. I'm going to mentally remember this for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
So I get home, you know, I get relaxed. I watch some TV, you know, get my mind off of it. And that's, you know, kind of when things get interesting again, because I took notes, because as soon as this happened, like what my next part I'm going to talk about, I took notes because most people usually don't remember experiences like this, especially as in depth as I did.
Yeah.
It was very, very interesting. But so let me get my notes here.
How long ago was this again, Josh?
2017.
Okay.
So this was just
a few years ago.
It was probably at the end of 2017.
Okay.
So
yeah, man.
Literally 3 years ago.
No shit.
Yeah. So again, you know, it probably took 2 or 3 hours for me to calm down and get ready for bed and, you know, feel comfortable with going to bed, let alone actually falling asleep.
For sure.
Because I imagine that at this point, you know, you're starting to, you know, you've been mulling over the whole encounter, you know, that's the whole time, because it's like once you kind of mentally stated, is that a UFO? That's when it kind of responded, right? See, and so it's like, okay, there was some kind of, that's, you know, and
telepathy. It is 100% real. And I can vouch for it based on that, because as soon as I said, as soon as this light goes green, I've got to go, it literally disappeared as soon as it. And I'm sitting there going, how did it have the perception to pick up a light that I'm talking about from my vision? You know? It was awe-inspiring. Like, I was just blown away at the timing of everything. So the experience, you know, seeing the UFO was enough for me to go, wow. You know, I was staring at the sky for a couple hours, you know, ever since then, just as much as I can. So yeah, again, just very crazy. But yeah, so I get home, I'm relaxing, I'm in bed, and this is like sleep wise, you know, there's the witching hour, you know, 2 a.m. to 3 a.m.
Yep.
Okay. I just want to bring that up because this is kind of like, it's important to this story. So, basically what happened was after I fell asleep, I woke up, you know, not like you would normally. Like, you're not waking up like, oh, it's 3 o'clock in the morning and I have to pee. It's like, I'm waking up and I am up. Like, my eyes were wide open. And I was sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm staring up at my ceiling. It's normal. Everything's normal. And then I started to become more self-aware of what I was actually experiencing. Like, you probably have subtleties in your bedrooms. For instance, like, you know, in my room, the corner, top left or bottom left corner of my window, I have a little bit of a leak, a solar or a light leak. You know, you get a little bit of leak from, you know, the lights outside. So like, I was aware of that little light that usually comes into my window. So I look there and it wasn't there. Okay. So I start to realize I'm not in my room. I realize I'm not in my bed. And then I fully realize that I am 100% unable to move. When I say I was unable to move, like it was like sleep paralysis, but not being like I could move my neck and head a little bit, like to the point where I could look a little bit to my right, a little bit to my left, and up a little bit. I couldn't move any other part of my body. And then, you know, like at this point, because it was almost like it knew what my room looked like, because everything about it was right, except for that part of my window that leaks out light. And because there was darkness, it was just like I said earlier. As soon as my mind realized what was going on, everything that was my room disappeared.
Whoa.
Basically, what I saw after that was just darkness. It was dark, and then on the sides, like I can't really describe it, but if the room was surrounding you, you would have like you're watching TV and it's a little fuzzy, like distorted, you know, like it's like that glass that kind of like, I don't even know how to describe it, but it distorted my vision just enough so that I couldn't make out what I was seeing. Right. You know, like, is that a table or is that like some kind of control panel? I couldn't tell, but I saw occasional lights, and, you know, I'm like looking left, I'm looking right. And, you know, it seemed like they didn't realize I was conscious, you know, because I was conscious for what I felt like 2 or 3 minutes. Right. I don't know how long that actually was. Yeah. Because and the reality was, you know, I was freaking out in my head. Right. But I couldn't move, or I couldn't scream. I couldn't let out any kind of anything. I couldn't muffle. I was under some kind of spell, basically. I could not do anything. Sure. No control. Right. And, you know, I start looking behind me and, you know, like pushing my head as hard as I can so I can see something, because the table, you know, whatever I'm laying on. And then I'm looking behind me because there's nothing else to my right, to my left. I can't see anybody. But I noticed something behind me, and there was just a wall, just of that same material, but it was not attached to anything. It was almost like it was blocking me from seeing who was behind the table, or whatever you want to call it. Yeah. So this is what happens next. So they noticed that I was moving around a little bit. They realized it, and like I was watching two bodies. I couldn't tell what they were, obviously, but two bodies standing behind me, kind of seemed like communicating of some kind. And then one of them stood where he was, and the other started moving to my right. And again, I'm looking up to my right as hard as I can. I'm straining my eyes and my neck. And he just walks right next to me. He's on my right arm. And I was looking up, and the guy had to have been 7.5 feet tall. Holy shit. Like I'm looking up and I'm just like, okay, what am I seeing here? He bent down and kind of just like looked over me. He had really long white hair. Like his hair was down to, I couldn't tell, but it was past his knees. Like not his literal knees, but, you know, from what I could tell, all the way past his hips. Right. It was long. Wow. Long white hair. And then he kind of just stared at me, you know, just made eye contact with me. And I kind of got lost. What I saw was these extremely blue eyes, and I just kind of got mesmerized. And as I was staring into his vision, a blue dot appeared right in his forehead. As soon as I looked at that, like everything that I just experienced kind of just poofed.
Whoa.
Okay.
Yeah.
So like I just disappeared and everything I was just seeing is gone. This is how I woke up. All right. I'm usually like laying flat in my bed. My body was sideways and I hit my head on my counter as I fell out. And I want to explain this correctly. Like, I was frantic when I woke up. Like, I got up to my knees. I was like, well, breathing, you know, I couldn't just focus on anything. It was literally like, it was terrifying. So I fall out of my bed. I realize what happens. And again, you know, like I stay up because what else did I miss? Because as soon as I stared at that blue dot, it was almost like it was like the Men in Black. You just got beamed and everything was forgotten. But I still remember what he looks like. I still remember the experience. You know, I'm sitting here going, if they did make me forget my memories, was that on purpose that they didn't? Was it a mess up?
Yeah.
Or, you know, was there a reason? I started to think about it. Like, obviously I was fixated on this for quite some time afterwards. So I have all the description, like what he actually looked like and what I actually recall. So, I mean, I told you about his long hair, told you about his blue eyes. He had pale blue skin. So like not white, but like a tint of blue with his skin. So was not necessarily human, but like I depicted him kind of like the elves from Lord of the Rings. Like he looked just like that, but blue with a blue eyes. And I was just like, that's crazy. Okay. Then I looked up, you know, known alien races. Nordic is one of them. And I was like, holy crap, that is literally what I saw.
Wow.
But yeah, like, okay, let me just say, so pale skin, pale blue. I just want to make sure I didn't miss anything, because it was the forehead I wanted to focus on, because that was the most, it was like the third eye, you know,
Right.
We as humans don't have the ability to use ours because it's been calcified by generations of bad eating or whatever you want to call it. But what are they like, you know, are they our ancestors? Did they originate us? What exactly is our connection with them? Because we are so close. And it was the weirdest thing. And this is the last thing I can, you know, really remember. He gave me a weird smile, and it wasn't like, you know, like it was, you know,
right.
Just a real faint,
like a half-baked smile kind of a thing.
Yeah. But if you know anything like about the lore, they don't show emotion, you know, they're very emotionless. So even that much effort, I'm sitting there going, why did he smile? You know, what did he do? And I'm not going to say that anything positive came out of this, but I will say this. I was born with epilepsy.
Okay.
And, you know, under controlled medication and all that. You know, ever since that experience, I have not had a seizure based on missing my medication. So, like, if I miss my pills, I will have a seizure. That's like guaranteed.
Sure.
And then if I missed it, like just New Year's, I forgot to take my pills, I didn't have a seizure.
Wow.
I'm not saying they did anything. I'm not saying anything was beneficial from it, but I've experienced, you know, a lot of seizures, and I haven't had one in 3 years since this experience.
Damn.
And honestly, it was a positive experience. No matter how much I sit here and am trembling still. Like I'm still like goosebumps all over, but I still feel like it was a positive experience because, it opened my eyes to what's out there. And I mean, it feels like that UFO I saw was connected. Mm-hmm. They were like, yep, you're going to forget this, but maybe not. Right. I don't know. Maybe it was just a loophole and I slipped through, but
that's wild, man. We haven't had a whole lot of abduction stories. We've had a few.
Not really, yeah.
You know, like this, no. And the Nordic thing is a new one. But he looked kind of human. I mean, for the most part,
very, very much so. Like, and when I say that, it's like very strong jaw, and then maybe a little bit stronger, like cheekbones.
Sure.
Just a little bit more pronounced.
Right.
But I mean, if they were trying to, maybe. I don't want to say this might be the plan, but if they're trying to get in with the human race, they would be able to after several generations. If they wanted to, probably could.
Well, and I mean, there's that idea too that what we're seeing, what the UAPs and UFOs are humans advanced, right? Coming back through wormholes or whatever, bending space and time and making it possible for them to come back. And this whole thing with all the revelations that we've had last year with all the sightings and things like that.
Yes.
There's that new show. There's a new documentary that came out, and forgive me because I can't remember the freaking name of it right now, but
fine.
It was it just came out, and I think it's on HBO or somewhere. It's on one of your pay monthly
streamers.
Yeah. Yep. But one of the stories is that there was an African UFO sighting at a schoolyard that hundreds of children witnessed during the daytime, and it physically landed on the school grounds. The kids were outside and were very close to the UFO, and they had these beings that they telepathically communicated with, and what they came back, and when they did the documentary, they went back and they found those kids are now adults now, and they interviewed them separately.
Was it about the Star Children?
Well, I'm not
something about Star Children.
I'm not quite sure, but what they said, they all said the same thing, which was the message that they were trying to get across was that we need to learn how to treat our planet better and be better people, basically. And that is like with what you're talking about. And what we've been seeing and what I think is going to come out more this year, there's going to be more stories about this stuff from the government.
Well, they had 180 days after they sent out those stimulus, 180 days from that date. So. Yes.
So what we're going to find out, I think, is going to be more of these types of stories. And, I don't think that we need to... Is it something that we need to be scared of? I don't think so, because they would have already have taken over if that were the case.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now,
and there's a lot to that, though. It's all about the side that we want to go on. Is it
right?
Are the reptilians the ones that control everything? Because that could be a possibility. I mean, government and Hollywood.
Right.
Are they on that side?
Right.
Or is it just simply, humans are just that bad right now?
Right.
Because who knows?
Yeah.
But
but it's fascinating.
There's a lot to it.
It's fascinating stuff, man. And your story is really interesting, man. Now you'd said that when you grew up and you had other experiences. What were those? Adam and I both seen UFOs.
Yeah.
Totally separate, instances that we saw something. And I'm always curious to see what people have seen in their lives growing up, or maybe what opened the door up to you as far as having the ability to say, you know what, this might be a possibility. Like, what were those experiences for you?
Yeah, so I'll go back to those good old college days. I mean, I was open-minded in high school, but just simply didn't think about it, Not a lot of people do when you're, that young. You're just like, I'm just trying to survive high school,
Exactly.
College, it's like, I'm getting drunk every week. So every day, it's awesome. Yes. Anyway, so there was a peculiar night, and this is just an experience that kind of brings back to, my disability with epilepsy. It's like I had a rough night. I'm laying in bed. I can't sleep in my bed for whatever reason, so I'm sleeping on the couch with the TV on. And this is going to bring up something that, you all may be aware of, may not be aware of, but if you ever watched Cartoon Network, when Adult Swim would come on, like, oh, it's okay, it's cartoons, mom and dad don't care. It's like, but in reality, those cartoons are very, perverse and not very good for morals and stuff.
They're for grown-ups, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. You just got to be careful. And like, kids watch Cartoon Network, and then it just turns right into it. And if you don't change the channel and you let them watch it, like I did, for instance, I'm just getting to the point. So, like, okay, so I'm laying there. I mute my TV, and I put my remote on the floor, and I know that because I've woken myself up by rolling on my remote and turning the TV on really loud and going, oh shit, like, wake up real quick. So it became a habit. So this is very important, and that's why I'm making this significant. So I fall asleep on the couch, and you know how Adult Swim sometimes has those weird commercials, can't really explain it, but like, there'll be like a river, and then like you'll see something in the background as if it's like on a separate like image running behind it. So like,
they do kind of weird animations,
weird animation stuff,
shows and stuff. They'll have music. It's all trippy and everything because
right, exactly.
I don't know, maybe they're marketing their shows for college students who are maybe had a little too much to drink or smoking those crazy jazz cigarettes, their left hand or whatever.
Exactly.
Wouldn't know anything about that. But I always liked Cartoon Network one way or the other.
I'm a huge fan too. So the whole point I was getting to is out of nowhere. So like I wake up at what time was it? 2:30. It was right at 2:30. I remember because I had to check my phone to turn off the TV. The screen went black. I heard static. Mm-hmm. Just straight static, and then just a face popped up and jumped out at me and screamed, like, and again, it's at 2:30 in the morning during the witching hour, and I'm not saying that it was alien. I'm just saying it was very, very unprovoked. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah,
like I'm sleeping. It's muted. My TV is muted. I made sure of that. Like, I'm not an idiot. Yep. And I put it away. I didn't roll over. And, it's very, it creeped me out. Let's just put it that way.
Sure.
It made me think, what else is out there? What else kind of subliminally are we being taught? Mm-hmm. And then I started thinking outside the box. Like, everybody I've ever talked to has told me, aliens can't be real because they're, angels or, blah, blah, blah. I'm from the Bible Belt, so I can give them that until I'm a high school, college kid. But yeah, that's kind of what got me started. And it's a stupid story. I mean, I get it. It's probably Adult Swim just laying prank on us, but again, TV was muted. I'm not saying
right.
It was almost like, I was dropped on the couch and then just boom.
Right.
It landed.
Well, it opened your mind up to maybe there's some weird shit going on in the world.
Exactly. And I mean, when I was a kid, my parents were told, like, hey, you're not wanting to get comfortable with him. Like, because of my epilepsy, they said this disorder is so not good. In other words, it's so rare. It's called lissencephaly. It's when your brain is underdeveloped in the womb. So, like, you know how a common brain is folded in on itself everywhere and it has those lumps?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
This part of my brain is smooth. Okay. Lissencephaly translates to smooth brain.
Okay.
And when they saw that, they thought mental retardation or death. Those were the two scenarios. They said, we don't give him a year.
Wow.
I'm sorry.
Damn.
That's what they said.
Holy shit.
And like, there have been things that I can't really explain through my dreams ever since I was a kid, you know?
Sure.
So there have been experiences like, you know, I've had a common dream where, you know, I'm getting like walked hand in hand. And it was just a shadow, you know, like I've had multiple dreams of the same thing. And this was when I was a kid and I actually had a psychiatrist. Like, I talked about this stuff and they actually told me to look back at those books, and I don't even like reading them, to be honest, because it was like I had a visitor in my dreams, you know, and never could, you know, articulate it. I was a child first and foremost. And then in college, I had like, you know, I had a full blown, like, this was a huge seizure, big deal. And as soon as I had that seizure, you know, I stopped having those dreams, and it was weird, you know, like I don't want to connect the two, but it almost seemed like as soon as that happened, cause it was a major event, it was like, I stopped breathing for a couple minutes, and it was close. So
damn.
Yeah. Like after that, I mean, I stopped having dreams like that, and ultimately, I don't remember any of my dreams anymore. Like, you know, most people, I like to think, don't remember a lot of their dreams. You know, you have it and you're like, oh, that was weird. I fell. And then it's like gone, you know? But the fact that I can still remember, like, where I was that night, you know,
right,
who I saw, what I saw, like all that, you know, it makes me think it wasn't a dream. And I've had a lot of vivid dreams, but I've never remembered a dream.
Yeah. Well, you know,
class at that.
Sure. The human brain is so weird too, you know, because we don't use it all. I mean, I'm sure in some facet, each little corner of the brain at some point in time is activated, but not all at once, you know, and if you have a different, you know, malformation of a part of the brain, it could open up. Like, you hear people that get hit in the head and they can all of a sudden speak a different language, or mathematics becomes like a fluent,
Beethoven,
you know,
they just start playing music like that.
It's amazing, and we don't know enough about it. As much as we know about it, we don't know enough about it. And so if you have this experience with whatever it was that when you know it came to visit you or whatever, maybe you have the ability for whatever reason to reach into that part of the brain that you need. I don't know. It's crazy, and it's part of why I love listening to these stories, because you know, different people have these different experiences, man. And not everyone's experience is the same. Like I said, we haven't had that many abduction stories or people that have had that. So it's cool to listen to, you know.
Hi, this is Danielle
and Gina
from Most Excellent, the podcast. To get your fix of all things true crime, paranormal,
strange, and peculiar, check out our comedy podcast, available on Apple, Spotify, Stitcher, or wherever podcasts can be found.
And remember to be most excellent.
Hey, that's a nice t-shirt you got on there.
Oh, thanks, dude. It's brand new. Do you like that? It's one of the official What's Your Weird Story t-shirts.
Where'd you get that?
It's funny that you ask. I just got it off the brand new Spreadshirt.com site for the What's Your Weird Story podcast. There's no www. You just go straight to shop.spreadshirt.com/what's without the apostrophe WHATS hyphen WEIRD-STORY, and that'll take you right there.
I mean, you can never own enough clothing.
Well, it's true, Barry. There's t-shirts for the ladies because, you know, they're cut differently. There's hoodies, which are really cool. There's 2 different kinds of hoodies, and there's also tote bags, so you can tote your stuff.
That's so cool, man.
So if you guys go out to spreadshirt.com, What's Your Weird Story, currently there are 2 designs, but there will be more going up very soon. So just keep your eyes out for that. And if you decide to get one of their shirts, tag yourself on Instagram to ours or Facebook. Show your love. Show us what you got. Let's see your true colors. Do you think that there's potentially a link to those dreams that you had when you were little to what this experience that happened later on in life with the Nordics? Do you think there's a link? Do you think this is something that's happened over a longer period, but you weren't able to like process it? And do you think that?
Yeah. So if you've ever seen, this show was on TBS for 2 years, and then they like, hey, we're going for season 3. TBS just signed off. As soon as they said that, 2 weeks later, they canceled it.
Yeah. People of Earth.
People of Earth. Thank you. You knew exactly what I'm referring to.
I did know.
Okay. So basically, you know, they have that connection with the reptilian. You know, he basically is gone against his own to help us. But, you know, it was, darn it, I just lost my train of thought. People of Earth, where was I going before this?
Well, I was asking if it was like a longer, you have that long connection, long reoccurring.
Yeah. So
thing.
My whole thought was, it's like, you know, when the main character, People of Earth, is looking through all his psychiatry books and he sees the drawings and all that, and it's like, okay, that's exactly it. And it's not that I have drawings or, you know, colors or anything. It was what I wrote down, like what I remember specifically. Really? Just a shadow, you know, just a shadow. And again, my mind easily could have just blocked out the image because I wasn't mentally prepared to see what I was seeing.
Yeah.
But my whole thought is, it's like, Nordics may not necessarily even be aliens. We don't know. They could be from the future, and they could just be popping in and out, just like you all said. It's like, in my dreams, I just remember that one shadow that would always be there, right. You know, and it wouldn't necessarily, I wouldn't remember conversations with it or anything, but it's like, that was common. And then to put it simply, I unfortunately do think that has something to do with it. But the good news, obviously, is that it's a Nordic that I was visited by. Because if it was anybody else, you know, I don't think I'd be this lucky. So
right. And maybe maybe there's more to come. You never know. You know, I mean, if they wanted to do damage, it would have been done, and it wasn't. You know, so that's something to do.
And as throughout, and you know, through ufology, there, you know, and there are countless races that, you know, some that are one timers and some that are frequent, you know, like the reptilians and the Greys and the Nordics, you know. You know, typically when people talk about the interactions with like the tall whites or the Nordics, it's not necessarily it's not a bad thing, you know.
Right.
It's maybe it's not entirely like, you know, harmless or whatever, but it's like, it's not something
traumatic or negative, right?
Exactly. That creates trauma.
They give off positive vibrations. That's 100% real. Like I I like to say that I'm, trembling because it was good, but it's still because I'm, dealing with it, dealing with the fact that that was not human, what I was looking at,
Yeah, sure.
Clearly. I mean, being blue and then having a blue dot right in your forehead, like third eye activated and everything. I just, it just makes me wonder, like, why was I the one that they picked to show me that? Like, and why am I remembering it? Because, if it's just for shits and giggles and they're just trying to fuck with me, they're doing a good job.
Right.
Or
maybe
I wonder if it has to do with the way your brain is formed, and that as because I mean, exactly. I don't think you have any X-Men type powers, but you're a mutant because of that, because there is that altered, that's different from everybody else. Maybe, and because you have the epilepsy, that could be, there's something they see with your brain circuitry, for lack of a better word, that is has drawn them to you. And maybe you are able in some way to, pick up that frequency that, or they can pick up something from you.
Right.
But there's, that's, maybe there's something like that potentially as a link as to why because you are different in that aspect. You have that difference, and that because on top, of the, even the epilepsy itself, so maybe that's it. And maybe they,
I mean,
the agenda is, but still,
it was very, it was interesting with that, because I wasn't told about my brain disorder or my epilepsy until I was in college. So I went my entire life without realizing I had different, something different up here. And it's like, when I was young, very young, out, very much just like months old, my brain had to either rewire itself or something had to fix this, because this part of your brain does control 90% of, I don't remember exactly what it is. It's like speaking or, vocabulary, something.
Yeah, a lot of the cognitive abilities are
exactly
there. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, there we go. So this part is completely just not functioning. So if that's the case, everything else has to pick up the slack.
Right.
And I mean, I've brought this up to my doctor, my neurologist, and he's like, yep, no, not a big deal. I'm like, okay, so I guess it's not a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not a big deal because it's not you. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
I'm just like, I just want to make sure I'm feeling better, because I don't have, seizures too often, but 2020 has definitely made it a little tough just because it's been one hell of a year.
Yeah.
2021 starting off great too.
Yeah. No kidding.
We're just getting all sorts of fun.
Yeah. But, no kidding. So
I mean, honestly, I do think that could be connected.
Sure. And maybe the spell or whatever that they use maybe didn't totally work on you either, because that you were able to remember some of that stuff, and that's pretty amazing. Now, when I've had dreams, I'll have very vivid dreams, and I'll wake up and I'm like, oh man, I got to remember that, and then a couple hours go by and you forget. And so it's cool that you were able to write things down, and so that you would remember what exactly had happened, because that's maybe not something that, it may not ever happen again to you. I hope it doesn't. I hope it doesn't. But for being
this is the thing. I sorry to interrupt, but it's like I wrote down all this stuff and I hardly used it. So I did this to make sure I don't forget anything. Sure. I'm like looking through right now and I'm like, I got it all off memory. And that's the scariest thing to me. Because it's like, that's not something I'm just going to forget. And, the good news is the more I talk about it, the more, healthy it is, because keeping it stored up, is not going to help me.
Sure.
But getting my story out there, that's what I wanted to do.
That's
because
awesome.
It is. It's necessary. It's healing to get that information out. And hopefully somebody listening will understand, UFOs are man-made, yes, very much so. But there are also aliens, and those aliens not always positive, like my experience.
Sure.
Because I know a lot of people that have, wished to be abducted. Like, that's how some people are. They want to be abducted. And it's like, you don't want to be saying that in your head too much, because, like, me personally, when I speak in my head and I'm like, I'll think of something dark. Like, for instance, like Adult Swim always references the images of Baphomet or something.
Right.
Like, dude, that will get pushed into my head and it will just run and run and run.
Right.
And when that happens, like, I'm seeing shadows move. I'm seeing, it's not good. So you kind of hit nail on the head when it came to, like, maybe I am able to push frequencies out, because that scares me, because that's very recent. And, we don't know enough about that stuff, but obviously cultures have looked to that, and thousands of generations are aware of it. So it's not like it's just some made up thing,
right? Yeah, for sure.
Is it the same? Is it different? Are they completely different? Is it all on, the same dimensional plane? Are they, fourth dimension, fifth dimension beings, or are they all right here?
Right.
Maybe? Yeah. Who knows?
Yeah. Maybe 2021 will tell us.
We just got to wait till the end of June, right?
Right.
End of June, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
I had another question.
Sure.
When you were on the fake bed,
sure.
Did you, and you were coming around, you were noticing everything, did you hear anything? Did you notice hearing anything? Any kind of...
Yeah, see, that is the crazy part. Like, it was almost like everything was mute. Mm-hmm. Like, I literally had no senses. And the whole concept was like I was in a mute box, like everything was distorted. Fuzzy walls, not like hairy fuzzy, but like just distorted. And I couldn't see what I was looking at. And then the wall behind me, to make sure I could not see the faces of who was, actually overlooking me. But yeah, I mean, there was very little sound that I can articulate. The weird thing is, whenever I wake up from a dream, I hear a slight ringing. So just you're just like, and it's not just a dream, like I'll wake up and, some days I'll hear it, some days I won't, but most days I have like a vivid dream, I will hear the ringing. And it's not like, it's different, because epilepsy, there's this thing called an aura saying like, hey, your brain's saying you're about to have a seizure. Like, and my aura is generally static. When I hear, that's I don't have anything in my ear that would cause static. So when I hear that, I'm like, lay down, assume the position.
Wow.
But it's not just like a staticky ring. It's a very distinctly different ringing. And I'm not trying to just make a correlation, but it does, it's just something weird that has happened to me frequently. And again, dreams are very easy. I wake up, oh, that was weird, and then I forgot it.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Well, even in like episodes of like sleep paralysis, those typically last a very short time, and then but it doesn't have a lot of it doesn't have the same amount of information, and sensations that you experienced. That's completely, I've not heard of someone who's had sleep paralysis that has described those kinds of things, because yours, it happened much longer. And with sleep paralysis, you may wake up, you may panic, because you do, wake up, but your body's not, moving
not
yet.
Listening. Your mind's saying, do this, and it's not moving.
But your awareness of that situation and where you were and what was around you, and the fine detail of the light is what really, that's, you know, really something. So that also makes me think that maybe you had been and are potentially still are being observed. You know, if this is something that has happened throughout your life, you know, this kind of these things, and then you had this incident that maybe you weren't supposed to tune in on it, but something happened that night, and they didn't, you know, weren't able to completely get it away, or, you know, polish or make you forget or whatever.
Yep.
But still, you know, I mean, that's just dude, that's wild.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy 3 years just trying to wade through it, and like, because I'm conscious of, you know, what I experienced, and, you know, the reality is that, you know, earthlings, humans are not just the only ones out there, and we have to be smart about this. Okay. Like, I know some people want to say we're the only ones and stuff. Let's be clear. You look up into the sky, you see all those stars. We are not alone. There's nothing that proves to me that we can be the only ones. And, you know, I just, my experience was a positive one. So, I mean, I can't tell you to, like, you know, the people that seek this, I can't ever advise this. Like, don't go looking for it, because I mean, this is something that I'm going to deal with for, you know, probably decades. I'm going to, you know, and I mean, maybe not. If they reveal themselves and say, hey, we've been here since the pyramids, you know, this is how we got back, you know, we created you all like that, whatever, you know, they're going to eventually reveal themselves. But until that time comes, you know, I'm always going to question every detail about this experience. And, you know, I mean, I'm not in an area that is known for aliens or anything like that. I do 100% believe this site, or the sighting, is what caused my abduction. Right. Because I was conscious, I was aware, and because I telepathically spoke to them, they probably were like, okay, this guy needs to be looked at. So I don't know if that's exactly what happened, but it does run together pretty well.
Well, and we've heard stories before about people who have thought things while seeing a UFO, and it reacted.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, and like,
that's not new to us.
Yeah.
Anyway.
So I mean, and even one of the times that I saw a group of UFOs, and my friend that was with me, and ironically, I was telling him about this other time that I'd seen a UFO with our other friend, and he saw these three dots with me, and he was freaking out, and he was like, dude, they're going to come and get us. It's like, no, man, if they were going to come and get us, we wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
You know?
Exactly.
And as soon as like I said that, these things like kind of like
danced for you.
Well, they split off, man.
Weird.
Yeah.
Okay,
one went off one way, three different directions. One went off to like the east, just kind of slow. One shot off to the west really fast, and the other one just kind of like, I don't remember, but it was strange, man. I mean, it was this whole. So yeah, I mean, there's and you hear people talk about how once they notice and like think it or even say out loud, you know, hey, I see you, you're watching me, I see you seeing me, that kind of a thing. Then all of a sudden they're like, oh, okay, well, you know, let's do a little dance, let's do something like that, you know, maybe, you know, like if you saw a little kid staring at you, you might like throw them a wink or finger guns or something, you know, make a face. Right. Like, I see you seeing me.
Yeah.
You know, that kind of thing.
It's like the truck driver pulling the horn for the kids. You know what I mean?
Exactly. That's exactly right.
That's awesome.
I mean, 100%. And I mean, those are the experiences I go for. I love seeing the lights, and, you know, because I mean, I haven't seen a UFO before that. So like, that was definitely my first one personally. I've seen, you know, online, and I've seen some weird stuff, but never like actually witnessed that myself. And then was aware of the telepathy. So as soon as I started to think about it, it started to move, and, like, hey, what can this thing do? And as soon as, I'm about to leave, he jumps into hyperdrive, and I'm just like, okay, that was cool. Like, I've never, I still can't explain it to this point. I'm just like, it was mind-boggling, just amazing.
Wow.
Amazing.
Okay, so I wanted to ask you, so Adam was trying to figure out his computer at this time, but you had alluded to a story that you were talking a little bit about someone that you knew that was a police officer, or
yes.
Could you talk a little bit about that?
So this is my aunt's current boyfriend. He is was a sheriff for New Mexico, one of the counties in New Mexico. Now, he was, I don't even think he was a sheriff now that I think of it. He might have been higher up. Regardless of his rank, I'm not trying to out him or anything.
Yeah.
He was, he was a law enforcement, might have been fed. But at this point, him and his partner were chasing what they suspected were human traffickers coming from Mexico into New Mexico through like a secret way to get through whatever. Yeah. So they're getting through, and they're waiting several hours. The van finally shows up. They chase it. The two people that were, driving the van get out and run. The driver, his partner goes after the driver, catches him pretty quickly. He said it was about 10 years ago, and he's about 60. So he was an older guy. He's not going to catch this guy very quickly. He's going to have to run for it. He knew what was happening. He was chasing this guy. And the way he described it was he was within reach of his hoodie. He's grabbing it. And just when he tries to grab it, he gets closer. He can't grab it. He dives for him. And as he's diving, he says he wraps his arms around him. And as he touches like the actual inside of his stomach, the guy disappears and he falls on the ground.
Holy shit.
Hits his face on the dirt in, like New Mexico. So, it's dirt and sand and whatever it is. I don't know exactly what it is.
It's desert. It's desert.
It's a desert. Yeah. So we're talking like, all that stuff. And this is at night, so they come back in the morning because this guy's gone. They can't find him. They of course walk around, do a perimeter, making sure nobody's just running.
Yeah.
There's nobody. Okay, they have their partner. This part kind of threw me off. And when I say threw me off, like, he was very articulate when he said what I'm about to describe. So they're interrogating the partner, the driver, and he's not speaking English. Mm-hmm. He's not speaking Spanish. He's not speaking any known language that these two police officers / feds know of. And he told me that he is somewhat familiar with Latin. Mm-hmm. So he would be able to pick up any kind of Latin, Spanish, any kind of Latin American language. He could pick up something.
Sure.
Nothing. He told me he was very disturbed when he heard the man talking. Wasn't like Middle Eastern languages or anything like that. He said it was very raspy and very like dry. Just a sharp vowels, like everything. It was just like really short, really fast, and just it was almost like he was choking on something.
Damn.
But he wasn't. And then, time goes by, he doesn't say anything else. This is the part that kind of blows my mind, because these are, federal agents, or at least they handed the guy over to a federal agent. And he actually told me that, like, I don't have a non-disclosure agreement about this, but, you know, not supposed to drop names.
Sure, of
Right,
course.
yeah.
Yeah.
We
So
wouldn't ask you to that.
Yeah.
Well, no, of course. I'm just saying because what is about to happen is really disturbing. The people that he was put in the custody of, somehow he was able to get out of his handcuffs, pull a gun from the police officer, and shoot himself in the head.
Whoa.
He did that without speaking one word of English. His partner disappeared, just out of thin air.
Right.
They came back the next day to that exact same spot to look for footprints. They saw his footprints.
Wow.
No bodies that he was chasing.
Damn.
There were no footprints other than his. So unless he was jumping on that guy's feet every single time,
damn,
there was no footprints.
That is wild.
And he says to this day that he believes that they were aliens, like under some kind of, you know, cover up or some kind of holographic anything, like something caused them to look human to us. But yeah, he said one of them probably got beamed up.
Right.
The other one, he committed suicide because he didn't want to say anything.
That is wild. That's like a movie.
That is. Yeah,
exactly.
Holy shit.
It's crazy.
Damn.
Yeah.
That's a wild one. Holy shit, man. Wow.
Believe me, I wish I actually experienced that one, because he told me that just what was it? Thanksgiving.
Wow.
Just this year, Thanksgiving.
Oh, wow.
He told me about that. And
holy shit.
He had a couple other ones. Like he said, he had a visit in a dead zone. There was a town that was, you know, renovated, but nobody ever moved out there because no cell phone reception.
Right.
Yeah.
Wonder why they would want to go there. But anyway, somebody was powering up like the city lights. So somebody called the police and was like, hey, go out there.
Yeah.
So he's driving out there, and he knows that his radio is going to go out at a certain point. He knows the cell phone, all that stuff will go out because it's a dead zone.
Right.
He gets halfway there, everything drops. And this is early. Like, he knows this is early. He looks up because he noticed no starlight. That's weird. He told me that there was at least a 3-mile wide triangle over his head. He swore it was from sky to sky. He could not see one single star, except for right in the middle, a giant circle, just glowing. And he's sitting there going, okay, what the fuck do I do now? What's going on here? So he noticed that, you know, he could see the town. He was close enough to the town that he could see the power was still on. He was like, okay, I'm going to drive back. So he drives back, gets out of there. And like, as he's driving away, that, you know, because again, no starlight.
Yeah.
It's still there. He starts driving as fast as he can, because he's like, I don't want to be that person that gets picked up with a cow or whatever.
Yeah,
so he's driving. And, you know, he said that it was almost like out of nowhere, the stars just popped up. So from darkness to light in a split second. Could have been, you know, they put on the some kind of, you know, what am I trying to say here? Some kind of device to cloak, you know, the entire ship.
Right. Like a force field of some sort.
Yeah, something. It's like, clearly they didn't care that he was the only person in that entire area. And he's just like, it took out the whole sky, is what he basically described.
Wow, dude.
And you're talking about an area that nobody lives in.
Right.
Who can tell me they're not there every night?
Yeah.
For all we know.
Yeah.
We had a guest on from New Mexico, and he lived up he lived where NORAD is, around that area, and he said that he's seen these huge craft like you're talking about,
exactly.
That big,
same area.
That's wild.
I'm not even joking here. It's it's terrifying to think, like, okay, your story, my story actually makes sense because it's the same area. Yep. And giant crafts. I mean, we could be talking about motherships. We could be talking about just cruisers.
Right.
Exactly, dude.
Right. Yeah.
We don't know what their capabilities are. We're sitting here just going, that's pretty. What is that? Oh my God, that's not a star.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's so wild. Yep. Well, we're going to see more of it. We're definitely going to see more of it.
It's going to happen.
For sure.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. Damn, man. Well, thanks, man, for coming on and taking time. Yeah, we appreciate it, man. It's some great stories, man. And this is the whole reason why we do this is for people like yourself to come on and talk, and maybe it helps somebody out there that has seen something similar to make some sense of it.
And it is. It's one of those things that I know I'm not the only person who's been visited. I know that for a fact. And, I'm just thankful that I was visited by a white or a Nordic because, again, grays aren't that kind. They poke you a lot is what I've heard. And you've got the much more devious reptilians. And again, I put a lot of money in this. I actually believe they are influencing much more than what we could possibly imagine. Like, sure. I feel like they've been here a lot longer than even we have.
Oh, sure.
And I mean, think about dinosaurs, for instance, oh, they just died out, massive asteroid. What if that asteroid was a spaceship by their own, let's take some of their DNA and create this. Boom. Yep. We got the humanoid reptilian walking around, and then they evolve over time. Yeah. Just like everybody on this planet evolves, right?
Yep.
Maybe. Yeah. First evolution.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. The possibilities are endless, man.
It is. It's there. So,
but we got a standing invitation, man. If you ever want to come back on, you're more than welcome.
Awesome. I mean, I can. I've got some other other topips. So, if I get visited again, I'll be reaching out.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely,
man. Well, Josh, thank you so much, man.
All right,
fantastic
guys.
Stuff, dude.
Yeah, it was awesome, guys. Thank you all for having me.
Hey, everybody, you're listening to the What's Your Weird Story podcast. You probably knew that already because you're listening or downloaded to the episode off of your iTunes or your Spotify or whatever place you get your podcast from. We want to thank you for listening. We also want to remind you to like us, follow us, subscribe to us, make sure that you get your new podcast episode every week. We'd also like to ask you to rate and review so that we can grow our audience, we can have more friends, we can have more stories. So thanks for listening to What's Your Weird Story.
That's a weird one.
Yeah. It was awesome, though. Josh, thank you for sharing all of that. That was fantastic. That was freaky. That was scary. Thinking about that happening, I mean, I think you seem to be, Josh seems to be handling it a lot better.
Yeah.
Coping with it.
Yeah.
Than maybe that I would.
Yeah, definitely. It's the first real abduction story that we've had, isn't it? We've had a couple.
No, we've had a couple. But it's certainly the first of this variety of alien, the Nordic type, because, we had Chad and Alta.
Oh, that's true. That's true.
And then
we've had so many episodes, I forget.
Yeah, we haven't had that
many. Definitely.
Yeah,
not
but
many.
It's a small number. As I've been going through on the website and updating all of it and adding all the episodes so that you can now go to the website and listen to each episode. You can find it there at whatyourweirdstory.com.
Yes.
But yeah, going through, there's some of these that are just like, I don't remember those.
Yeah.
But then oh yeah, we did have that. But yeah, we haven't had too many.
Yeah.
You could probably count them on, a hand.
Sure. And certainly not the Nordic variety.
Right. And nothing in like this. And it's where it's weird because, it's part of it seems, the whole part of it seems sinister, just the fact of the abduction. Mm-hmm. But also it seems like, he says, as he said, it seems like maybe it was beneficial and maybe it was helpful and they were helping him out.
Yeah. There's a whole thing going on there with his health and things like that add to it that is really quite fascinating. And I think the more that we find out about these things here coming up in the future, about what exactly we know about what's going on with spacecraft and maybe alien beings and whatnot, some of these pieces will start coming together. But for now, we're left with just people like this that have these kind of encounters that are trying to explain exactly what it's like to be in that situation. And I, for one, enjoy it because it's like, okay, that gives me at least I got a picture of what that must be like. I feel, bad for folks that have to go through something like that. Like he was talking about, he had a great experience. It wasn't, in so many ways, it wasn't an awful situation, but some folks do have bad situations.
Yeah, compared to most, that was much more on the positive side. Right.
Yeah, for sure.
For kind of abduction and experience and interaction with the alien beings, so.
Yes.
But typically that is what you hear of the Nordics or the tall, thin whites or whatever, they call them. Right. The different names, but that's typically, they are, some of the good guys, I guess, or the better acting ones.
Right. So. Right. But, just great stuff. Fascinating stuff, man.
Yeah. Thanks again, Josh.
Yeah. We're so fortunate to have people like Josh that want to come on and talk about these things, and like he said, he doesn't really have an outlet for that, so we're happy to provide that situation for him to be able to talk about it.
Yes. Cool. All right. Well, next week is we're going to change it up a little bit, and next week our guest is Summer, who it's not so much a weird story, but anyway, I guess there's only one way to say it. Summer read our palms.
Yes.
We had a in real time palm reading session with Summer, who is she's not a professional palm reader, but she certainly has. She's been doing it for a while.
She could have fooled me, man.
Different ways, but yeah, like it's a really cool session or whatever you want to call it, but it was really cool, and we found it very insightful and very interesting, I guess. Just really, really cool and a lot of fun.
Yeah.
So we've got that for you next week.
Yeah.
And also remember to keep an eye out on your subscriptions. If you're a subscriber, if you're on your podcast platform of choice, keep an eye on that. You may miss a week, and if that is the case, that is because we'll have switched our host to self-hosting, which will be happening here over the next couple of weeks at the end of January, and as we start doing it on our own DIY style.
That's right. You've been hard at work, sir.
Yeah. But it's going to be really cool. It's going to be really freeing for us. It's going to give us the ability to do more shows and more, specials, more podcasts and stuff. But yeah, so keep an eye out on your subscription. We will give you a heads up for sure on when we will be doing that. Like I said, probably in the next couple of weeks. So by the end of January, for sure, we'll have that go, and we will all you'll have to do is just unsubscribe and then resubscribe, and it'll sort it all out, and you'll be hearing our voices in your podcast mailbox or whatever you put it in. We'll be there for you like we have been always, like you guys have been there for us.
That's right, you have been, and it's been a fun ride, and we're kicking off this year in a great way. We got new things coming, we got new things going on, we've got great guests coming on, and we couldn't be more excited about it.
Yeah, lots of really cool stuff coming up in the next few weeks. So join us, keep us in your tracking device. I don't know where I was going with that. Keep us in line. No, follow us, stick with us, huddle together. I don't even know, but stay around, stay here in Weirdsville, and tell your friends, tell your enemies, subscribe, and then resubscribe whenever the time comes to do that. Follow us on Instagram, on Facebook, Twitter, when we do those tweets every once in a while. It's all what's your weird story or what's your weird stuff like that. You'll find us. And, hey, if you've got a weird story and you want to share it, everybody wants to hear it. Everybody in Weirdsville wants to hear it. So go ahead and get a hold of us and let's set that up. Or you can write it out and send it along, and our special correspondent, resident Bigfoot expert and voice of the listener, Mr. Jeff Hubbard, can read it for you on air. So let's wrap it up, Barry. See you next week, guys and gals. In the meantime, be safe.
Be weird.
As always, if you have a weird story, we want to hear it.
If you have a lot of them, we want to hear them all.
We can't do this podcast without your invaluable contributions.
Whether it's sharing your stories,
listening,
rating,
and spreading the word about the podcast. Thanks for listening. Until next time, be safe.
Be weird.
The stories presented on the What's Your Weird Story podcast are, to our knowledge, true experiences that our guests have had. We can't take the time to research all claims made, and besides, it's just not